Greatest good. We need to talk about this, you and me. So there is this standard spiritual, unquestioned belief system and practice in the spiritual community about the two-word phrase greatest good. All right. Now, this came up in my new 4Amers Awakening Toolkit, the whole live group thing that we did on YouTube. This came up and I spoke about it briefly there, but I did not do a deep dive. And we need to do a deep dive, and it's going to go into my inspirational basics so everybody can get it. But we need to talk about this. Now, before I, dive down the rabbit hole on this, I think the first thing I need to say to buffer it and be kind and compassionate is that I understand that the phrase greatest good is kind of like a spiritual staple. And for a lot of folks, using the term greatest good, like that is at like the core or the heart of your spiritual practice. I honor this. I truly do honor this. I know, and I know for a lot of you, this works for you. That's fantastic. I honor this as well. But, big but, the but is that I have found through my coaching practice and my own spiritual practice that it doesn't work for everyone. When I began learning about greatest good, it definitely did not work for me. And I began to have some other experiences and opinions, and I landed in a completely different space concerning greatest good. So, what I would like to do in this video is present an alternative to greatest good and say, hey, here's my experience with greatest good. This is what I began doing. This is what I've been training my clients to do, and it really helps out. So that way everybody gets honored and we begin to put some new options out there, and it's going to be backed up by a little bit of historical data that we're going to talk about here in a minute. And the place where I want to start from the top is my own spiritual experience. So we're going to rewind way back to Durango, Colorado, right around 2006 through 2012. So 2006 through 2012, that was the anchor point of my first intuitive business. I called it the Purple Phoenix. I was an intuitive life coach. That was my foundation. And that was the place in Durango, Colorado, where my then husband, Bob, and we were very active and very connected in with the spiritual community there. And it was in that community where I began to run across this thing where people would say, greatest good, greatest spiritual good. And they would program that into manifestations and prayers and intents and all of that. And here's where I depart from the path because especially those first couple times I heard it in a spiritual circle, I heard it in circle being said, and my full-on somatic response system, my body did this. I heard greatest good just really get bellowed out and put out there. My first response to it was, ugh, like, ugh. And then I continued to hear this thing about greatest good, and I continued to have that rather like ugh kind of feeling to it. And I was like, what is up with this? So I actually took the phrase greatest good, I took it into meditation. I took the energy of it into meditation. I started talking with spirit world about it. And what I began to find out was like, oh, this is why I'm having the biofeedback that I am. Because every time, and still when I hear it, every time when I hear the phrase greatest good, to me, it vibrates, it resonates in a mid-level vibrational frequency. And that's not clear to me. It's not clean to me, because when I am working with spirit world, I'm calling in really high vibrational light frequencies. And when we hit that greatest good, it all just kind of goes, it's like hitting my funny elbow, my spiritual funny elbow. Something goes twang, and it just doesn't quite fit in for me. And so when I went into meditation and talked with spirit team and really looked at the vibrational essence of it, I realized, oh, this is like a spiritual comfort zone for a lot of people. And that works. Like, if that's the place where you want to be and that vibes for you and that works, great. But like when I began doing it, like it did not work for me. And so what I want to begin to say here is if greatest good vibrationally doesn't tune to you, I just want to honor that and say there's other options. So what I began doing with my spirit team, like with the whole greatest good thing, when that was involved, whenever I heard greatest good, I would keep my mouth shut and let people do their thing. But then in my mind, I would go highest and best, highest and best. And that would make me feel so much better. And this is what I've talked about, in my live groups and in my videos. The deal is we are ground crew during this time of ascension and great time of evolution. So don't we deserve the best? Absolutely. So isn't it in our best interest to call in our highest help and our best help from spirit realm for our highest intent so that we can always land on the top side as much as possible with everything that we're doing, like who we're interacting it with, the exchanges we're having, the experiences we're having. Like if we are working with and asking for highest and best with spirit team, and that also comes with highest and best intent, because greatest good has built in this whole thing of like, it works out good for everyone. And like, I'm on board with that. And so when I started doing highest and best, it also had highest and best intent for myself and all those that I'm connected to. Like that is my prayer that I say when I begin doing group work or consciousness work with and energy work with clients. So that was kind of where I was at for a while. And so I went along, and then all of a sudden, somewhere along the way, I got this wild hair like in the back of my head, and I'm like, that thing, greatest good, that has to come from somewhere. Like, where did that come from? And so now we fast forward to Paonia, Colorado, North Fork of the Gunnison. And I'm in research mode anyway with somatic money, and I'm like digging down trying to find the bottom of things anyway. And I get to this place because like I get to the spiritual community in Paonia, and of course like greatest good. And I'm like, I'm having my bio response system. I keeping my mouth shut, and I'm always saying highest and best, like you do what you can without ruffling feathers, right? So I'm in that space, and I start thinking, this came from somewhere. Like, where did the whole thing about greatest good come from? And when I had that thought, I'm like, race to the computer, look it up. And of course, there's a place that it came from. Do you want to know where greatest good is rooted and anchored in? Take a look at that. Greatest good actually comes from a philosopher from Great Britain, and he dates back to 1748 to 1832. So greatest good is a phrase coming from the colonial toxic patriarchy, white male patriarchy, right out of Great Britain in the mid 1700s to early 1800s. And this was his philosophy. His philosophy was about utilitarianism, and it was basically the greatest good for the greatest number. Now, what is not said here is somebody freaking gets sacrificed. Like, this whole thing, the greatest good thing, has built into it sacrifice and martyrdom, which means somebody's going to get offed. And I say that kind of like with the dark, painful, spiritual, funny, ha-ha humor kind of thing of like, oh my God, but like, oh my God. So when we say greatest good, we are literally building into our manifestations. Somebody's going to get sacrificed. There's a certain amount of martyrdom involved. And guess who that probably will fall on? You. I just want to bring this up to give you awareness so that you have a full range of choices. Now, so now I've given you highest and best. There's also greatest good. You might be thinking of other terminology or other phrases that work for you. There's so many different ways to do this, but I want to crack the door open and really question the level of energy that we are vibrationally practicing through our words that we're manifesting, so that we can have a much greater awareness of what we're actually bringing into our lives when we are saying these words. And the other thing that I would like to mention on the back end of this is that, to me, as we're headed into this ascension place, this whole idea of, somebody's got to be sacrificed and somebody's got to be a martyr, those are actually what I would call part of the karmic money soul contracts. That's actually shadow world. That is an aspect of Judeo-Christian culture that we are working on becoming aware of and healing and releasing from the planet at this time. So I'm just going to leave you with those thoughts and let you turn on those and let you discern with that and let you decide what you want to decide. But now you know where I stand, that anytime I hear greatest good, I am going to be thinking highest and best. I will leave that with you, and I will see you in the next video.